Hello, and thank you for joining us again at Autistic Radio. In a few moments, we'll join the 555, Harry's Facebook recording, which is sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. If you're a practitioner who requires cryotherapy, when you use coldpack.co.uk, we get the benefit here from their sponsorship. So thank you for that. Hey Harry, what are we doing on the 555 today?
Hello everyone. Thanks Jules. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 7th of June 2026, and this is where we go through the Facebook page and the posts shared with autisticradio.org. And as always, we start with a poem. And the poem this week is called Middle-Aged Men in Shorts by G.R. Robertson, who is with us this evening. Middle-aged men in shorts can upset you in all sorts of ways to make you cover your eyes. Like two long white poles, shoed in the best doctor shoals, the same diameter from ankles to thighs. The sight of your knees, say cover them please. The lumps and nubbles aren't good, and if for a lark you covered them in bark, it would be the ugliest tree in the wood. What's people's thoughts?
Well, it made me laugh, Harry. We sometimes have some quite serious poems. I mean, last week we were discussing a poem where somebody was talking about their darkest thoughts. And now we have this piece of daftness about middle-aged men with stringy legs that are the same length, the same diameter from one end to another, like little cylinders, offending everybody by having them in shorts because they're just so unattractive. And I feel as though, wow, thank you for levelling things out and making it a bit of a laugh.
JR has a real talent for this kind of humour and observation, I think. And you know, at first, thinking seriously, and when I saw the title, I thought this is going to be really autistically based, because the amount of autistic middle-aged men I know who wear shorts, as if it's a comfort issue. And I've never been one for that, because, you know, of course I was conditioned that you give up shorts when you leave primary school. But what a compromise that's been all my life to a certain extent, because wearing shorts is quite comfortable, but to a lot of us it feels like an imposition, doesn't it? Sometimes it's like it's flagrant, it's flagrant. It's almost like exposure, isn't it? And all those feelings that arise in one. But I'll leave it at that.
I really like it. I would imagine Lewis Carroll and Edward Lear were autistic, if I now put my thinking cap on. And I've always been a fan of, this isn't nonsense verse, but this is really good. I just love it. But yeah, it made me think about some of the kinds of poetry that I really enjoy. And also, you really could be, this could be for children. You really could write children's books. It's so well done.
Yeah, it's a bit Dr. Seuss-ish, isn't it? Or even Pam Ayres that we used to have in the UK, a lady who was a kind of middle-aged lady who looked as though, you know, she was brown and beige, and then she would say quite acerbic things in this nonsense verse. So the nonsense verse usually hides something else that's more, pithy. And maybe in this there is a pithy thing. Guys in shorts are actually inflicting their unattractiveness on the rest of the world, even if they don't realise it.
Isn't pith part of a tree?
This covering them in bark was where I thought, like, I don't really think it's nonsense, but it's highly illustratable. But I guess I just do love it. Shot in the best Dr. Scholl's, the same diameter to ankles and thighs. I was going to think if this was about a woman, it would be even funnier.
There is a thing about autistic men in shorts, and there's often a thing where they say, I'm wearing these shorts because I'm autistic and it's my most comfortable way. Trousers are too restricting for me. And I have to say that I don't wear shorts because I'm autistic. And I like to have trousers covering my legs that show the difference between the rest of the world and me, so that every little touch of sunlight or every little glance of wind is not making my the hairs on my legs notice and be something. So it's strange because as an autistic person I prefer not to wear shorts.
I wear pyjama bottoms out. Not colourful ones that just look like leggings of one colour, but they're very soft and cottony, and yeah.
I have never told the person who inspired it, just in case. And I sent this one in because I thought after last week something a bit lighter and frothier would be a good thing.
Yeah, it was much appreciated, and I thank you for that, Gia. Because you have shared a few of these kind of poems, which is appreciated. A bit of humour, which I always love, and just reading it, I really enjoyed. And the thing about it as well is it kind of reminds me of someone else, but also reminds me of me. It reminds me of someone that I know who's autistic, who always wore shorts as a comfort, no matter what the weather. Anytime I saw them, and they travel from a distance, they were always wearing shorts. It's clearly, obviously, a comfort thing. And that's what I do when I'm at home. Is I don't like to wear long trousers in the house. It's just like when I'm in the home, my knees need to be free. So I've got some shorts that I wear around the house, and sometimes I even go out with them on when I'm taking the bins out and back in. And I thought I'll just do. I mean, you can see my knees. I'll not be too bad. I won't be long, but I totally get that the poem is very profound that way. And yeah, the thing about it as well is, I suppose all poetry is the same, whether it's humorous or very intense and serious, is it always creates pictures, always paints a pictures or draws a picture, always creates some sort of vision for me anyway. And all I can see at the moment is knees.
It's an El Nino summer, so maybe you've prepared everybody to shield their eyes.
It's like some things only a doctor should see.
My pretty much my head is completely hairless. I don't have a hair on my body, so if I wore shorts, it would look like a pair of shorts on two fluorescent light tubes.
Yeah, you can't hear me laughing because I was muted, but yeah, two fluorescent light tubes for two little legs. What do people think about this shorts thing with autistic people? Because sometimes I feel as though there's something that people are demonstrating about their autistic identity when they wear shorts. So it's not. It may have started as something earlier on in their lives where there was a discomfort issue, but I'm wondering whether it becomes a uniform or a statement. You know, what do people feel about that?
I'm 50-50 about that.
I don't think it's the same in Canada because it does get very, 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 very hot and humid here, and men do wear shorts here. So I would say there are some autistic men who wear shorts all year, and I remember some from university who walked the campus wearing shorts in the winter with Birkenstocks and very heavy woolen socks. It was a look. Maybe they were signaling.
We're also going to if we talk shorts, we have to talk sandals and socks with sandals, I think.
Are you going to say that it's not okay for me to wear my socks with my sandals, GR? Are you one of those people?
No, I wouldn't. A minority struggling to represent themselves with socks with sandals.
So, as the minority, okay, I know that the world says that socks with sandals is an appalling thing, a terrible look. And I'm going to say it's comfortable. You know, socks on your feet stop that feeling of everything touching them, especially when you've got sandals where sandals are stronger when they touch you, aren't they? Because there's less touching you. I think socks with sandals is a very practical way through the world.
I agree, Jules.
Socks with sandals no longer a minority. Now they're a cult.
I think that's what I mean. It did become a thing. And to me, there's a certain kind of sock that really does go with the Birkenstock. Oh, and let's think about men's feet while we're at it.
No, let's not. Let's not think about men's feet. Let's cover them up with socks so that we can't see them. Please cover your feet, men.
Sorry, the woman in the outdoor centre said to me, the reason why your feet hurt a lot and you blister when you're wearing your Marks and Spencer's soft cotton socks is because they have this lining in them that irritates your feet, whereas really good, scientifically proven walking socks don't have this kind of lining thing. So, I bow to the experts.
Oh, and back to our conversation about that very topic from our last session. I do have Merrills. They last for at least 20 or 25 years, and so do those socks that are a big investment, and they work. You don't need many, just get one pair, test it out, but they'll last for like 12 years compared to other socks.
Give me a brand in the text.
So, Jules, when you're out sandals with your socks on, if you see someone coming the other way, a man coming the other way with sandals and socks on, do you give him like a knowing nod as though to say, yes, we know we're right?
Oh, like a cult. I have to say that if I do wear sandals, it's because I'm in a hot area and if I was to go down to a swimming pool at a resort or something, I would take my socks off and go and be normal, you know? You don't need your socks on in that situation. But if you're around the house and you're wearing sandals so that they're a light pair of footwear and you're comfortable because of the heat and everything, I would be more comfortable in a pair of socks around the house. So it's a compromise, isn't it? I know that it's a ludicrous thing for the rest of the world, so I don't put myself up for ridicule or make it a statement and say I have to wear socks and sandals and make it part of my identity. But I do think that some autistic people do make shorts part of their identity, you know, and they were willing to go out in snow in shorts just to prove a point.
Are they commando though?
Now, this is a bit much. I will say, if it is for comfort, I don't think they're signaling. But I don't think that's the kind of comfort issue, the sensory issue I have with clothes is not that my legs are not free. For me, it's the labels, really uncomfortable waistbands. Like I need some clothes that are smooth, you know, like that don't dig in all the wrong places. And I think Ray has told us, he calls them leggings. Leggings to me are very tight, like tights, but I guess you don't mean that. But I think there are two things. There's one group of people who are signaling, and there's another group of people who are doing it for comfort. But I feel like the most predominant comfort thing, at least for me, is it can't be too tight. It can't have like scratchy seams. It can't have scratchy material, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Teresa. And personally, I find that a pair of shorts is more likely to have scratchy seams and things than what Ray described, which is almost like going out in a pair of trousers that are so thin and soft and the seams are soft that they are nightwear, or those jeggings that are not tight. They're not the tightest ones to, you know, show your curves as a lady. They're a little bit softer and a little bit forgiving, and they just fit to the body so you don't notice them. They're body glove kind of thing. Those kind of things, it seems that the seams are less of an issue and they're away. Whereas, I don't know, most shorts seem to be the opposite. They seem to actually have more issues to me.
Going to your point, Jules, about some autistic people wearing shorts, not just for comfort, but as a fashion statement or a statement to say, I'm wearing this in defiance, I feel can be quite true as well, because it's not just shorts, is it? Some people wear different things or things that are perceived not to be normal, whatever that is, you know, like colours of things, the type of jacket, the type of top, the type of hat they wear even. It's like, I'm going to be defying here because someone said to me in the past that that's totally ridiculous, even though there's nothing wrong with it. You're not doing anything bad. It's just someone saying or people saying that's not the right way to be. If it's something that you feel comfortable or just want to do, I think a lot of autistic people can be defiant and say, I'm going to do this anyway. And that includes shorts. Because I was so defiant at one time that I wore a school uniform on the day where it was non-uniform day, just to prove a point that I was doing what I wanted. And that's the sort of mindset that I'm thinking about in a way. The next post is from Autism Friends, which is a page working towards an autism-friendly borough by increasing understanding and changing people's perception. And the website is autismfriendlywigan.co.uk. And what they've shared is pictures of people out in nature. And it says, thank you so much to everyone who joined us on our walk today. It was great to just have a chat and walk around such beautiful nature. Most people's thoughts.
Wow, they look happy.
This is great. The Autism Hampshire, my local autism charity, have I don't know if it's twice a month or every other week, they do a walk in the New Forest because we live in the New Forest. And the guy who plans the route of the walk is one of the people with autism, and his thing seems to be maps. So he really studies maps to work out where the walk should go. So yeah, it's great getting people out in the outdoors.
There's a thing, you know, that phrase like walking the walk and talking the talk, and I believe you can walk the talk and talk the walk. Something about the energy of being out in these environments and walking generates an energy, and people can kind of open up to their experience. Whether they talk a lot about it is another matter. There's also a bit of me adding on to the last conversation, which is I'm looking at everybody's gear.
Yes, I mean, this post reminds me of my own experiences going on a walking group that used to be like one Sunday a month, during between spring, between March and November. And it used to go all different places. Sometimes it was city walks, within. I can remember like a few in Glasgow because that's where it was the Strathclyde Autistic Society who were based in Glasgow. They were the organisation that organised it. And I remember being in Perth as well. I can remember even doing local ones in my area, but also doing ones that were within a forest, sometimes within a country park. Sometimes within, a cycle path route, which is not always great, walking because, cyclists think you're in the way. But it was always nice and pleasant, and I used to always enjoy it. But there was one time it put me off where I was walking along with the group, and I was lagging behind me and another person, and what we were doing and enjoying was we were just enjoying this conversation, and we were going this sort of circular walk. It was Greenock, and we kind of lagged behind, the group because they kind of pelted on. They seemed to be in a rush to get the walk done, but I just felt at that time it was just nice and relaxed. It was a lovely day, just talking. Don't remember what the conversation was, probably just general chit chat. And I remember not getting pulled up or getting a row, but there was this sort of sense of you're lagging behind. You should try and keep up with the rest of the group. And I'm going, wait a minute. I think it's time for me to stop going because I've just came to a walking group. I'm enjoying myself. I wasn't lagging too far behind. It wasn't just me. It was two of us. And it was just like, no, you've got to keep up. It was this sort of kind of authority thing. And it just sort of says, well, this is, if I want to go a walk, I can actually just go a walk and meet up with friends. And I did do that afterwards. And it just brought back that memory of a nice memory, but also one that made me kind of change of going to groups that were run by charities and organisations. And I'm not saying this one is like that, that's probably more inclusive, but and more understanding if you were kind of walking a bit slower. Because this sort of thing that you need to keep up with the pack is a bit. It just felt I was back in school.
Oh, Harry, yeah, isn't it amazing when you're in a really good vibe and suddenly these shadows come over you of old memories?
Sorry, I turned my speaker on by mistake, Ray. I wanted to pick up on what somebody said, but I think it was you, Ray, about the technical gear and all that. And then something Harry said about lagging behind. I used to belong to run groups, but then yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about technical gear. Like, I do wear one of those watches that measures things, which is probably a hangover from when I did do the little triathlons and stuff. But I kind of just like it as a watch. And there's a lady in this picture. And then, yeah, some of the people do have some nice technical gear and all that. But then in the running groups, they allowed people to lag behind. Like, there were people of all different speeds. It wasn't meant to be autistic, but I heard yesterday that more autistic people are into like the measurement of the things and the technical aspects of the things, and especially in cycling. I think there might be, like, in people who follow the Tour de France or people who ride that kind of bikes have a higher percentage of their population are autistic. And then this all kind of just came together and reminded me of that. These people look like they're genuinely really enjoying this. And I kind of am thinking, in this group, you can lag in whatever way you want. I hope.
Yeah, I get that impression as well, Teresa. It looks like a group of autistic people are organising it for themselves and getting on and enjoying it without all those pressures. So, and looking at the rest of their Facebook page, if you're in the Wigan area or the Northwest generally here in the UK, I would suggest it was a good Facebook page to reach out and find other autistic people through. And this walking group might be the way to do that. It might be the first step out into meeting some other autistic people. So I would encourage this group, which is called Autism Friends.
Honestly, if I walked in a room and met all these people, I'd feel okay.
I love the smiles, and it doesn't seem forced like a pose. Or maybe it is a little bit, but it just seems natural. And another memory that this does bring up is something that I wasn't actually directly involved. It was, Michael Dawson, who's been to some of our drop-ins. I think he was part of it. It was like this sort of breakaway group of people getting away from, the charity or organisation organising these sort of trips or walks. It's just basically a bunch of autistic people that know each other, are friendly with each other, made a few arrangements to go trips places, and to go down to the beach in Ayrshire, or go up to the Cairngorms, and go up to Loch Lomond, go all over Scotland in a sort of way, which was doable by public transport. And from what they were telling me at the time, was there was no pressure, there was no rush. Obviously, there'd be a sort of start time, to be reasonable. But once you meet up, it wasn't like a rush. We all need to go back together. We can all go there, take our time, and enjoy it. And basically, what this is doing, with Autism Friends, is enjoy being out with nature, enjoy walking, enjoy being with other people. And even though I get critical about the organisations as well, I did enjoy a lot of the times where I met with other autistic people. Of course, I didn't always enjoy meeting them all because, like everything else, you don't enjoy everybody's company. And, that's the same people maybe feeling about me as well. It's just personalities, characters. But I just like knowing that these things existed, and especially the ones that break away a little, because there's feeling from people in the autistic community where when something is organised by an organisation or charity or council or whatever it is, there's this sort of control thing over it, because it's all about safety. That's the way they kind of put it across. But if there's a bit of freedom about it, it actually feels safer because you don't feel controlled. And basically, what you're just doing is just enjoying life, enjoying a hobby. And I think that's what this post is all about. The next post is from Autism Awareness USA, a medical and health page for the purpose of spreading awareness. The journey ends, but the impact continues. Thank you for supporting neurodiversity and autism acceptance. And they shared this post on a group called Life of an Autistic Mum official group. And they're based in Miami, Florida. And they shared the following quote, which is credited as motivational quote. When an autistic child takes your hand, just know that they tend to only do this with people they deem responsive, safe, or familiar, as it requires trust. And they say, sometimes the smallest gestures carry the deepest meaning. What's people's thoughts?
I'm thinking of the gesture of holding hands, like as a child reaching for someone's hand. Some strange thoughts here. It's like I'm trying to remember being a kid and why I would touch someone else's hand, and it would usually be to almost demand that they participate with me. It's like, I trust you enough to play with, I want you to come here, I want your attention. But then there's this holding hands in some sort of embrace of comfort, and I don't know which one's being stated here. So I'll leave it at that.
There's also a safety thing. Children are required often to hold hands, like on sidewalks, and I'm sure they're not talking about that here, but so sometimes they might not even want to hold hands, but they have to hold hands or hold the yellow rope or whatever. But I don't think they mean that here, but I just wanted to add that to a childhood experience.
Look in my own childhood experience, holding hands was a gesture of feeling safe and comfortable, and also loved. But mostly safety, because from what I recall, mum, dad, the upbringing was nice and comfortable and protective, and this is all well before obviously the autism diagnosis or identity, whatever you want to call it. But from my experience as an autistic child, it's like holding hand was a safety thing and a bit of comfort, obviously depending who it was. But I do recall, years ago, that like my friends' children, like walking along the road with them, we're all together, but he had a few children, and I can always remember one of them it was like a hand signal that, hold my hand. It was like, they're kind of putting their hands together, like, where's your hand to hold my hand to walk along the road, or of course to cross the road or whatever. And that's a sort of kind of memory that sort of kind of springs to me as well.
I would also say that this is probably true. It does seem just a little superficial, but it's not, because I always had a sense when I was a kid, almost like I could feel the energy of the person. And I could tell if somebody wasn't nice. Like even relatives, like who, I wished, not, there was nothing sinister really, except for in those things where you have to hold someone's hand to cross a road or whatever, there were people I would think, no, you're not one of my trusted people.
What I also remember is I preferred to take my mum's hand, because when my dad took my hand, it just seemed always too strong, and his hands were a lot bigger, and it just seemed like the grip, even though it wasn't meant to be, not sore, but just like, oh, that's a bit tight. So yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
I'm really appreciating these daubs of paint in the image. That texture is giving me sensory buzz.
Yeah, I should have described it actually, because that's what attracted my attention as well. It's like a rainbow, it's like, the colours of life. In a way, I suppose some colours you appreciate, some colours not, but there must be at least one colour there that you'd love. And I like the colour red, even though my favourite colour's black.
Is brown in the rainbow? Anyway, I'm nitpicking. What's getting me sense-wise is, the only word I can think of is the daubs, of paint. They're so thick and drippy.
Yeah, it looks like oil paint put on with a palette knife. It's quite pleasing. Even the spots where the canvas is showing through is nice.
I think it's an inclusive rainbow by adding the colours that others would say it's not very popular, because brown, I even remember as a child that the colour brown, was something that, oh, that's a horrible colour. And the reason I'm saying that is because there was a primary school, not one I went to, mine was blue, but there was a school uniform where it was a brown jumper and a brown kind of tie and shirt, just the way the uniform was. And I was just glad I wasn't there because it was brown.
Here's the thing, it's not a primary colour, it's a mix of two other colours. But I've noticed black is here as well. Black is sometimes formed from red, but, or is seen as a vacuum. It's like the non-presence, but it's definitely presence. Just went off on one there.
The next post is from the Autistic Advocate. Kieran Rose is an autistic consultant, academic researcher, author, trainer, an international speaker. And he shared the following: Asperger's syndrome and autism, a narrative of stigma, which is part of his original training. And he says in the post, the Asperger's label is often discussed as if it simply represented a different presentation of autism. But its history reveals a far more complicated story. This training, Asperger's syndrome and autism, a narrative of stigma, unpacks the origins of the label, the controversy surrounding its development, its inclusion and eventual removal from diagnostic systems, plus the myths that emerged around supposed differences between Asperger's and autism. Beyond definitions, we explore the broader impact labels have and how they influence perception, access, identity, and stigma. The aim is not to erase lived experience, but to encourage critical reflection on how diagnostic language has shaped the autism narrative. What's your thoughts?
I'll just briefly pick up on that last sentence, the phrase, how diagnostic language has shaped the autism narrative. I might have to sit on that for a bit, but my immediate response is, again, identity. Are we creating identities from words we use?
The reason that I shared this is because I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome back in 1998. And I remember when I was being diagnosed, of the sort of language around it was, you're autistic, but you're not really autistic because you can talk, you can think, you can communicate normally, but you've got these issues regarding you need to keep with routine, you get upset easily, and you have obsessive hobbies or strange interests that isn't perceived, it's strange. It's not something that, it's perceived as normal in society. So, of course, that sort of language has disappeared, and well, not disappeared, but it's kind of, I hope, kind of progressed because that terminology, Asperger's syndrome, no longer exists. And I know that we've talked about this before, but I'm just kind of wondering, just as a reminder, what would I be identified now if not Asperger's syndrome?
Level one.
Go on, Teresa.
Thanks. Level one, autism spectrum disorder, which is what I am, with no language impairments, which is what I have.
I don't really want to go and fish it out, but my diagnosis said I would have been classified as having Asperger's, and I really don't like the term because of the historical connotations of it. If people want to identify as Asperger's, that's up to them. That's fine by me, but it's not a term I use. I have autism, and I see, because I go to a social group, I see people, and I hate to say it's more severe, but people who experience autism in a much different way than me. But I feel that I have a connection with them, even if they're non-verbal, and I'm happy with that.
I think we have a connection with them too. And I seem to recall that the issue with that original doctor, whatever, Asperger, is that he chunked the people into whether they had a utilitarian purpose or a, he said level one, what we call level one now, were people who had a utilitarian purpose in society, and that the other levels did not, but we do have something in common with each other. We we can offer something to people at different levels than us, the way we do in this podcast, because we could advocate for them, because there's something similar enough being in this spectrum where we can understand communication issues, yet we have language.
So the culture dictates the diagnostic language.
I don't think I said that, but that's interesting.
I think
No, I'm
go on, Ryan.
sorry. No, I was just reflecting on what everybody was saying and thinking that out loud. Given that they've changed a lot. My cousin was told he was bipolar and manic depressive and a number of different things before he eventually got Asperger's in the early 2010s. I mean, if he went in 2019 or 2020 when there was, I think, a different culture in place, he may have got the diagnosis I got.
I would kind of call it, oh, sorry. I would say, so way in the beginning, like when we were born, or around the time I was born, which is a similar time to some of you, like Ray. Anyway, we were more closely connected with schizophrenia, like as if it was a schizophrenia, sort of a child with a version of schizophrenia. And then, yeah, but all the things in the DSM have evolved over time. And I too had a different diagnosis. Like I wasn't diagnosed. I was diagnosed as very clinically depressed. Yeah.
My understanding with Asperger is that the people that he diagnosed and the scale that he came up with is if those people weren't considered to be of being able to serve any function in society at all, it was a genocide, and that's my understanding of it and why I don't like to use it.
Okay, I'm going to wade in on this. Asperger was working under the Nazi regime during the Second World War and before the Second World War. And he was in a position where he had large groups of mostly children that he was able to take from the general stream that were going to concentration camps and have them and observe them for periods of time, and then those that he found less interesting would then just be processed with the rest of the humanity through the concentration camps. So the controversy about Asperger is that he was experimenting on groups of people and making life and death decisions during a fascist regime. Whether the work that he did is uncomfortable or not doesn't really change the results. The results are that he was one of the people that identified that there was a similarity between these really bright Asperger autistic kids and the non-verbal kids. So he was actually one of the first people who was bringing forward the idea that there was and I'm going to use a controversial term, high functioning version of autism that was closer to what the Nazi regime viewed as a valuable human entity rather than somebody to be discarded and destroyed and murdered.
Important distinction there, Jules. You know, even in democratic societies, the psychiatric institutions are not entirely innocent. We live with what we live through. I wouldn't want to condemn everybody who operated under the Nazi regime because they were there, you know. There for the grace of God went I, you know. But I know why people take their approach to it and their interpretation. But thanks for that, Jules.
Yeah, shouldn't forget that Leo Kanner was doing similar work in America in 1943, and he came up with infantile autism. So there was parallel work going on about this.
Yeah, that's true. I especially have felt like the word utility that Asperger used was revealing of something terrible, really. I don't like that word in this context.
So, sorry, some people refer to fascism or Nazism as hyper-capitalism. So if you're going to talk about utility, it would be hyper-awareness of utility.
Well, I don't think he meant that we had a hyper awareness of utility. It's like he was creating two lines, people who could be used to do things and those who couldn't be. It's all what Jules said, though. But to me, I get what he said, and I also do agree other people were working on it at the same time. Yeah.
What I meant briefly was it was an industrial machine.
Yeah, I mean, any time that we talk about Hans Asperger or Asperger, whatever he was called, it's going to, the history's there. It's been documented, and it's understandable we go through this because obviously these things happened. I mean, the thing about that terminology is just remembering at the time where it was talking about the so-called other autism as a deficiency, like being told like you're autistic, but don't worry, you're not that kind of autistic. You're actually closer to the so-called normal. So don't worry about it. You'll get help. You're okay. You're not this or you're not that. It's like you are. It's not all bad. It's like meaning like being autistic in their eyes was bad. And I just to kind of run up to the diagnosis, just thinking of the things that were said. Obviously, my mum and dad obviously what I said about how I grew up and my experience and all that. Nothing bad. Just talking about how I was. Like I wasn't like a so-called normal boy. I wasn't interested in sports or football. Or so-called normal boy games. I had interest in things like lampposts and electricity pylons and roads, structures, stuff like that. I wasn't able to tie my shoelaces till I was 14. I couldn't do a tie. I couldn't ride a two-wheeler bike till I was 10. So obviously all this stuff was kind of, because it was late on, it wasn't as appeared as normal. So it's not even the word Asperger is obviously a word that is quite impactful because of the history. It's because it's called syndrome as well. And just moving on from that and feeling more positive about my own, my own, situation. Like you don't need to think like that now. It's not what they said it was before. It's more progressive thinking, etc. Which I'm really grateful for, not just for myself, but for autism in general, and for a lot of people in general. It just brings up so much interesting topics.
Why was the term removed? I mean, people still identify as Asperger's, and a lot of us see our diagnosis as an identification process. And does that mean that those who were diagnosed as Asperger's have to have a new diagnosis?
As far as I'm aware, it was rolled into was an American medical journal. They said that the guidance was that Asperger's would be folded into a general autism diagnosis. And what Harry was saying about using the word syndrome, on my diagnosis, it says ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. And I really don't like that disorder. But I have seen in some places, like there's a school in Tottenham near me, and they actually have ASC outside, autism spectrum condition. And I think having a condition feels better to me than being told that I'm disorderly.
Yeah, and today I was thinking about, where does the condition come from? Does it originate in a person, or is it in the process of relation with society, or does society condition people into having the condition?
I just wanted to say, okay, something about the words condition, disorder, and syndrome. I'll just talk about disorder and syndrome. Syndrome, I think, is when they're early on and they're just noticing a group of symptoms and they're saying, oh, this looks like a cluster of symptoms. And then I think they move away from it and maybe say disorder. Also, I think different countries use the words differently.
Yeah, I think you're right. Different countries use the different words differently. And I think you're right that syndrome is a collection of things that seem to come together, a pattern that's developing before it then is classified as something specific. And that might take a period of time in modern medicine, especially in mental health services. I see all of these words as synonymous in the way that they are used. All of these words are medicalized terms for my brain being different from the general population, but similar to other neurodivergent people. So if you say that I have a syndrome or a disorder or any of these other words, that is still indicating to the rest of the world it's a medical problem. You can prefer one word or another, but what is being communicated is that somebody is less, somebody is broken in some way. Changing the word doesn't change the concept behind it, even if the word subtly means something different in medical contexts. So, for me, I'm autistic. And then whenever I use that word, I have to explain that word to other people, because whatever that word means to them is going to be different to what it means to me. It's a mess, but it's up to us to insist that our autism is a normal part of the human spectrum, the normal part of the diversity of humanity, and has been forever. And it's an identity and a difference, but it doesn't have to be medicalized.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think too that especially here we're not being offered any. I'm not being offered any services, but I have other syndromes too, and then they might eventually turn into like a disease. So I can separate it out from like this thing, which is kind of almost more of an identity thing. If you just, if I just, and I do the same, I just say I'm autistic. So, but when I say I have Meniere's disease, that was a syndrome first, and then it got called a disease. It is helpful for me for it to be a disease, because then I get treatment. So it's not helpful for me to say I have a disorder because I'm not getting any services for it. But then, yeah, it's so difficult.
Well, thank you, everyone. That was a great conversation tonight, as always. Really, from humour to the more serious stuff, it's always great, to go through that journey with you all and to share it, live and broadcasting. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 7th of June 2026, which is part of the Spectrum Voices Conversation, which is live every Sunday, 5:55 to 7 p.m. UK time. Look forward to next time, and I'll see you soon.